Sean, forgive me, forgive me. Now, I would like to introduce our moderator, Abu Amara. Abu Amara Jr. is a Twin City attorney and public affairs expert with more than 15 years at the intersection of law, public policy, crisis management, and politics. Currently, Abu is a partner at a law firm practicing in a variety of complex civil and business litigation matters, and also has his own public affairs consultancy. In addition, during that same time, Mr. Amara has played a critical role across Minnesota media. He is also a frequent legal and political analyst across Minnesota media, including WCCO TV, WCCO Radio, KARE 11 TV, Twin Cities Public Television, Minnesota Public Radio, the Star and Tribune. All of those, and I've heard him on Minnesota Public Radio, is outstanding. He provides insight and analysis on some of Minnesota's biggest headlines, including the criminal trial and conviction of former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin, the 2022 midterm elections, and the 2021 Minneapolis and St. Paul municipal elections. So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce Abu Amara Jr.
Thank you so much, Patrick. I'm honored to be here today to share all the work the North Side is doing to grow the community. Today provides an opportunity for local community and entrepreneurial leaders to share their thoughts and experiences and insights and strategies on shaping the future of North Minneapolis. But before we do that, I would be remiss if I did not introduce our host for the evening. So please give it up for Neon's president, Warren McLean. Warren McLean brings more than 35 years of experience in finance, fundraising, strategic planning, program development to Neon. Warren has been president of Neon since August of 2018, and the results are through the roof. Since joining Neon in 2018, the organization has grown significantly, serving more than 2,000 clients just last year alone, creating a $5.5 million loan fund, acquiring its building as part of the Grow and Thrive campaign, and constructing, I don't know if you heard, it's in the news, constructing a 25,000 square foot, $22 million debt-free, I say that again, debt-free collective kitchens. Neon's total assets have grown from $588,000 in 2018 to more than $41 million under his leadership. Warren's dedication to championing entrepreneurs has earned him recognition in 2023 as one of the 200 Black leaders in Minnesota by the Minneapolis-St. Paul Business Journal. Also in 2023, he was chosen by Women Elevating Women as a Visionary Man Award recipient. Okay. And in 2021, the Minneapolis-St. Paul Business Journal named Warren a, quote, most admired CEO. Also in 2021, he was named by Twin Cities Business Magazine as 100 Minnesotans to Know. For decades, he shared his expertise as a board member with community organizations across the Twin Cities. He currently serves as a board member of 4 Access Partners, the Minnesota Catalyst Alliance, the 927 Board and Steering Committee of the Destination Northside Coalition. Warren.
Thank you, Abu, and first of all, thank you for that introduction. Very kind. I would like to thank our sponsors before we can begin the conversation, and they include Ferguson and Byron, JP Morgan Chase, Kowalski's, Land O'Lakes, LSE Architects, Key Investment, Northeast Bank, Old National Bank, Sunrise Bank, US Bank, and Xcel Energy. I'm happy to turn it over to Abu to start the conversation.
Thank you, Warren. Again, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this vital conversation hosted by NEON, as many of you know, a Black-led organization rooted in North Minneapolis and committed to uplifting low-income entrepreneurs through economic empowerment and community resilience. So we want to talk a little bit about what we want to achieve today. We want to expand the understanding of artificial intelligence and the role that it can play in economic opportunity, community impacts, and possibilities. Second, we'd like to examine how communities can both benefit and participate in this AI economy. So let me do a quick level set here. Over the course of human history, we've had 3 and now potentially 4 great revolutions that have transformed the way we work, the way we live, the way we make money, the way we connect. The first one was an agrarian era where, our people don't need to be told this, where income was earned through sweat equity, through work on the ground. The second great revolution was through an industrial area, going into a factory or a shop and laboring to earn income to support a family. That third revolution is really the service industry and really using brain power as a way to generate innovation, creativity, and ultimately income. And now it seems that we may be entering a 4th era, an artificial intelligence era, in which digital and computational intelligence is going to be essential for the next era of growth. And like so many opportunities in the past, our folks have been left behind. And so this seems like a great time to have a conversation about how we can utilize artificial intelligence to grow our businesses and to expand our opportunities. And like I said, like the revolutions before, the AI revolution is going to be disruptive. There's no question about that. But at the same time, it's going to be the great driver of economic growth. As just one example, the New York Times ran an article just a few weeks ago that talked about the first billion-dollar company with only 1 employee. Just think about that for a moment. The first billion-dollar company with 1 employee. So if you think about the disruption that they may have, but also the great opportunity to utilize the creativity, the entrepreneurship, the greatness that comes from our community to leverage this asset moving forward into the future. And so that is where we want to ground ourselves. So let's dive into that conversation that centers the community, that challenges systems, and that sparks some of the solutions. So let's get to our panelists. I am very excited because I don't know nothing about AI. So let's start with our panelists. Warren McLean, you might have heard of him. I don't know, he's the NEON president and CEO. Dr. Elizabeth Adams. I said Dr. Elizabeth Adams. Dr. Adams is a globally recognized leader in responsible AI strategy and organizational leadership. Her work focuses on helping organizations implement AI in ways that are people-centered, equitable, accountable, and aligned with long-term community impact. A sought-after speaker and thought leader, Dr. Adams has presented internationally, including on the TEDx Exchange, and has been recognized by Forbes as one of the 15 AI ethics leaders showing the world the way of the future. She currently serves as a visiting scholar at Umeå University's AI Policy Lab in Sweden, collaborating with global experts on responsible AI governance and policy. And let me add, is a 5th-generation Minnesotan. That means your family was the first.
You've been here a while.
And second is Eric DeCluet. Eric is a seasoned information technology professional with more than 2 decades of experience leading technology initiatives across industries, including healthcare, retail, manufacturing, consulting, and financial services. His experience includes organizations, you might have heard of some of these, Medtronic, 3M, Best Buy, Ameriprise, Allianz, and United Health. What makes Eric's perspective especially valuable is his ability to connect technology to real-world understanding. And for folks who were here earlier, you got a dose of that earlier. Known for his teaching through analogy, Eric helps people embrace new ideas, relating them to familiar experiences and everyday life. So let me just begin with a show of hands. I want to get a sense of this. How many folks have heard AI is here to destroy everything? It's all bad all the time. Raise your hand. It's okay. There's more of you. Come on. No shame in the game. We've all heard it's here to hurt us all in every single type of way. Well, our job, your job, I'm not really doing this, mostly you. Your job is to bring them back from the cliff. We want to bring you back from the cliff to understand and acknowledge that concern. But your feelings are legit, right? A lot of disruption, but also a lot of opportunity. So we want to acknowledge it, but we also want to help empower and demystify what AI is and what it is going to be, so folks in our community understand the opportunities that are available to them. So first, let's just get a grounding here a little bit. Talk about your space in the AI field and how you come to where you are now. Doctor, I always start with the doctors, so we're gonna start with you on this one. Dr. Adams.
Sure. First off, it's incredibly wonderful to be here with you all in conversation. And I'm excited to be a fifth-generation Minnesotan. But let me just talk about my experience. So I started in AI, the AI space, the responsible AI ethics space, about 10 years ago. I had just left the Department of Defense, where I managed a systems integration lab with about 200 people, $54 million operation. And we used math and statistics. We didn't really call it AI. And as I left DC and came back to Minnesota, I started to see that AI was making its way into society, but it wasn't necessarily working for everyone, specifically Black and brown communities, and more specifically around AI surveillance technologies, facial recognition, gait recognition, spy planes, drones, you name it, heartbeat lasers. And so I wanted to understand why, and I began to ask the question. I got engaged with the city of Minneapolis, got appointed to a committee, and started working with policymakers on understanding how AI was being used to govern citizens in Minneapolis. And that work led to a coalition, and it led to ultimately banning facial recognition in Minneapolis. But it's not because I'm for banning technology or AI technology. It just wasn't where it should be, and that was 6 years ago. There was an uptick in facial recognition because of George Floyd's murder, and communities were being harmed. And so I went on this quest to really begin to help leaders and organizations think more responsibly about AI and what that means, and that has since led to a number of different things, and I ultimately went to pursue my doctorate in responsible AI, where I immersed myself in organizations to understand how their employees were engaged in shaping their organization's future. My study focused on African American employees and those who are not African American employees to understand how lived experience might be brought into organizations around policies, procedures, standard operating procedures, and if that could influence the way AI was developed. So I'll stop there because I'm going to get into some more things.
Eric?
Sure. So Abu's introduction is missing about a decade. I've been doing systems and entrepreneurship for 30 years, not 20. And the majority of that time has really been implementing simulation systems, which in a way is exactly what AI is. So I've been helping, I'll call it the haves, advance their technology, advance their ability to generate wealth with their technology. And in 2017, which is when the Gen AI revolution happened, things like ChatGPT became available, it became apparent to me that there's a new California gold hill out here, and I recognized that we can't be left behind. We need to stake our claim. Otherwise, the haves are going to just have more of it, and we'll be left further behind. At which point I started moving along this path of teaching AI to those that didn't yet own it, I've only been an adjunct at the U for about 2 years. I've also involved myself with a number of STEM programs and high schools to give AI technology to the kids. But in that, I also realized that I'm not satisfied with that. The pace and the direction in which the world is changing, if we don't do more to own AI now, our kids won't have a chance. So I'm swinging the bat more at enabling the adults to own AI before AI, and not just AI, the 1% that owns AI right now. I don't want them to own it forever.
So you both said AI, by my count, something like 31 times. So I want to ground the listeners in what do we mean when we say AI. So I have an intuitive understanding. I know ChatGPT is like, hey, how do I clean this thing? It just tells me. I don't know how it works. I don't know why it works. But that's my intuitive understanding. So imagine yourselves, not in a college course, because both of you are clearly brilliant. Imagine you're talking to me. How would you define AI in 1 minute? And we're going to start with the doctor.
1 minute, I will go even further than you, because you know more than most people. I would define it as, and I'm the person who sits behind the ones and zeros to understand the human orientation of it. But for me, AI is basically training a computer model to think like a human, but at a much faster pace. It is a pattern sense maker, as Eric explained earlier. It goes out and it looks at patterns and it returns information to you. But for the purposes of this discussion, for me, it's really just a tool, a computer system that trains a computer model to think like a human, but at a much faster pace.
Eric?
Sure. Yeah. AI started in the 40s, right? The first use of AI was breaking the codes, the Japanese and German codes of World War II. What they did was feed the transmissions, the encoded transmissions of Japanese and German troops into machines that do pattern recognitions. And when you notice this pattern occurs again and again, you can get the sense of what that means in the real world. That's the same thing AI does now. You train it to pick out patterns, and then when you give it data, like a prompt through ChatGPT, it matches that data to the patterns that you've trained it on, and now predicts what should come after. So the definition that I would give you of AI is just recognizing the patterns, which we all do. Think of yourself when you imagine you meet someone new who speaks a different language, right? So English is not their native language. You really have to pay attention to their pronunciation to pick out the English words that you recognize. AI is kind of doing the same sort of stuff.
So you brought up patterns, and I'm going to open up to everybody here. Let's talk about how some of those patterns are manifesting themselves in industries all across the world. So can you just talk a little bit, maybe an example or two, about how AI is transforming maybe the job creation sector, or maybe the democratizing information, or healthcare? I mean, there's all kinds of industries. Why don't we start with Eric on this one?
Well, yeah, so the impact of AI is long ago, right? Think of your phone. It's been doing voice recognition. You talk to Siri, you talk to the Google agent for a long time. What we're experiencing now, in my opinion though, is there's a new level of hype about AI and what it can do and who it can replace, which is just that, hype. But it's driving the public, it's driving the markets to directions that are non-trivial at best. So the challenge we have as consumers, as users, is discerning the truth from the hype so that we can make rational and better decisions for our futures. In terms of jobs, Oracle just announced 21,000 people were laid off because of AI. About a year ago, IBM did a similar thing. It was a fewer employees, more like 5,000. But then about 3 or 6 months later, they realized, no, we have to hire them back. It remains to be seen what Oracle's future will be with its 21,000. But in general, AI is nowhere ready to replace a person.
Doctor?
So if you think about an organization, a large organization that has tons of resources, they could actually pay to bring in a consultant to teach them different frameworks, to modernize their policies, procedures, to help them with design and development. All of that access is available to all of us now, the small business owner, the entrepreneur, with the emergence of generative AI, as Eric so eloquently talked about. Now I, as a small business, can use it to create a marketing plan. I can use it to create strategy documents. I can use it to create workshops or content for workshops. It doesn't cost me as much anymore because I don't have to spend thousands of dollars going back and forth with the consultant about whether or not what they're delivering is what I want. Now I can at least take the first pass. Then if I choose to, I can actually reach out to someone. So from a democratizing perspective, I now have access to the same things that larger organizations have that I didn't as well. And if you also think about that from rural communities who maybe didn't have access to these tools as well, now they also have access to training, AI literacy courses, things that weren't available before. So there's many, many benefits in terms of how small businesses can leverage AI, and I hope that we'll be able to get into those conversations about some of those use cases.
Warren, thoughts?
Well, I have a few. I was thinking back to my career. I started my career at IBM, selling entry-level and mid-range mainframe computers. And in those days, I can tell you a phone has more power than a computer decides to sell. So in the same way, and you can see then how technology has been democratized. And so everybody has a phone, right? So you have this opportunity to connect using your phone every day. And so AI is clearly, use Siri and all those things. They've been using those tools for, without knowing it, that you're using AI. For me, personally, I use AI probably every day, like everybody else. And I particularly use it for minutes, for some of the meetings that I have. So for instance, particularly I have a finance committee meeting. That meeting is very detailed, and after Zoom goes off, I get the meeting assets, and it gives me detail what was said in the meeting. And so I obviously have to edit it because AI takes someone's email address as their name. It's not. So I have to edit that. But it's very helpful in doing that. I also know my doctor uses AI. And he said to me, Warren, do you mind if I take notes using AI? And I said, no. And so everybody uses it. And he's not an expert in AI, I know that. But he knows how to apply it in his daily life. So, it's a very ubiquitous tool right now. And my thought is, and the reason why we've been doing this, is we need to raise the visibility and the importance to our community of using AI. As we named this particular session, it was called Owning AI Before It Owns You. And the idea is making sure that we take advantage of the tools that are out there and not be afraid of them, but apply them and take advantage of the tools so that we can be proactive in and utilizing them and using them to our advantage.
On that point, I think both you and the doctor talked about this democratizing information and opportunities. I will tell you, in the legal profession, we have seen this massively. Everything from empowering communities to have information, so now all of a sudden we're having conversations. I can't tell you how many clients I've had who said, yeah, but I brought this up in AI and it told me this thing, right? That sometimes it's wrong, I'll be honest, but it really does empower the consumer, the user, with initial information, and particularly when you're dealing in circumstances like housing or other things where there may not be legal services available, it is instrumental to empower people with information. That democratization did not exist, 30 years ago, pre-internet? I mean, it's a revolution that I think every single American, every single black person needs to be aware of and empowered about how to utilize that to their advantage. So, Warren, what is Neon hearing from its clients about AI and its impact?
Well, frankly, I'm sounding an alarm because I wasn't hearing anything about it. Frankly, we were having conversations and I didn't hear anybody talk about AI. And so we said we're going to have this session to elevate AI in our community and with our clients. And that's the reason why we're having this session, because nobody was really talking about it, but it's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. And so I wanted these two experts to share their expertise with this community, with our community, so we would know, number one, not be afraid of AI, which I think many people are, and then not utilizing it to the way that we could. As you gave an example of the person who's a one-person billionaire or created a billion-dollar company, obviously we can do that too. And so I think we need to have a different mindset that says this is an opportunity, not something to be afraid of.
So let's talk a little bit about how to empower folks, how they can empower themselves to ensure that they're not left behind with this new technology. So I'm going to open it up. Doctor, spend a little bit of time. What do you think our community and all communities need to be doing to ensure that they're not left behind with this, I don't even want to call it a new technology, the new iteration of this technology?
Is that for me?
That's for you,
Oh,
Doc.
you said Doc.
Again,
Okay,
I
I
always
was
start
just
with the doc, so.
Okay. I would suggest use it with curiosity, but also caution. In order for you to understand how the system works, you have to play with it. Eric talked, I think, previously about AI being like a child or a young person. You have to train it on what you want to do. So the way that I use AI is I have created what I call a council, and I treat it as if it's a billion-person focus group. Yes, it can create an email for me, or it can summarize my emails and tell me what I haven't answered or what email I haven't answered, and it can actually file some away for me. But the way I like to use it is to think of it as if it has access to thousands of information, libraries, databases all around the world, and give it a prompt such as, I'm thinking about a leadership experience for X, Y, and Z. Can you bring back insights that leaders have had around purpose and artificial intelligence or whatever, marketing, whatever topic it is? And I also ask it to give me the response in a 90% confidence. I ask it for about 20 different lenses so that when I get that information back, I feel very confident about it, although we still need to make sure humans are in the loop. Ultimately, I get to make the decision about whether or not the prompt that, or the response it gave me works for me, but I leverage it because I know that it can reach out to many, many different sources. And so that's how I leverage it. That's how I like to think about it. And of course, we can talk about some of the ways to be careful about that. But one of the ways that you can deal with bias and hallucinations is to ask for links, is to ask for a way for it to verify what it gave you so that you can actually go and click on the links yourself.
Eric?
Yeah, I'd second that. You know, I don't use an AI. I use all AIs, right? So if I have a question and I want to find out how do you turn copper green, right? I'll ask ChatGPT, Gemini, Anthropic, all of them, gather their information, and now I'll do what I want. In fact, if you look at what Google is doing, Google is turning search. We used to put in terms and get back links to websites. Google is now turning search to AI only. You get back an answer. You've got to ask extra to actually get the links. The cool thing about is you now get your answers quicker, you get your answers quicker. The bad thing is there are businesses that depended upon you making that link for their revenue. So what's going to happen to them is still an unanswered question. But from an ethical perspective and from a democratization perspective, yeah, it's certainly lowered the cost of accessing information for all of us.
Eric, you mentioned earlier a gold rush, and I want to kind of unpack that statement there a little bit. Can you shed some light on kind of who is leading in that gold rush? You mentioned Google, some others. What I want folks to know is when they leave here, what are the AI tools that are available to them currently? Identify those so that they can start, as the doctor said, playing with them, understanding them, becoming proficient in their use. Can you shed some light on who's kind of leading that gold rush right now?
Sure, and so I think you got a little misinterpretation of what I meant by a gold rush.
Well, please correct me.
The gold rush, so just think of the amount of time that I can now save by getting my answers from Google, right? Similarly, I can use AI to where in software development, it would take me months to create something that was ready for market. I can now use AI to create that in minutes. So AI has allowed all of us to really reduce the time, reduce the effort to accomplish the things that generate wealth. That's the gold rush that I'm talking about. It's not something that anybody, OpenAI, et cetera, is chasing or has created for us. It is the opportunity to utilize this technological innovation to do the things that generate wealth easier and much more efficiently. And the tool you use is totally up to you. They are not, even if I say ChatGPT does it better, that needs to be qualified by right now, because 2 weeks later, someone else will be doing that same thing better. So they're in a constant race and perhaps a perpetual race. The wave they're making is not necessarily even a wave I need to ride. I just need to, in its wake, pick up the gems that now allow me to generate wealth more efficiently.
So the wave is coming, but grab your surfboard is what I'm hearing you say.
Or just let it pass and pick up the gems that are left behind.
Doctor, I'm gonna come to you. Tell me about the inventory. If I wanted to know what's out there for AI and I want to do inventory, can you give me a sense of maybe the 2 or 3 or 4 that you think are really kind of leading the way?
Good AI tools for inventory? What type of?
Just any AI tool that you think people should be aware of.
Well, there are some of the basics that are more popular. Claude, I use Claude just about every day. Claude has philosophers behind the training of their models, and so they're going to give you more humanistic or humanized responses. I do like ChatGPT for some different analysis. It is great for some imaging. But if I need a really quick response, I will just go and use ChatGPT. I like Gemini because I too am at the U. I'm a part-time faculty director in the Applied Business Program. And what Gemini does with Google Workspaces, it can go into any of my drives and I can ask it for a document that maybe I created 6 months ago, and it can quickly pull it to the surface. Or I can ask it, are there emails, like I mentioned before, that I haven't responded to? Can absolutely tell me that. So I use Gemini for that because we have access to that at the U. And then I use Copilot as well, not as much. I started using Copilot, but what I like is the way that Claude works with my businesses. We talked about democratizing it. Claude and ChatGPT really helped me for about 6 months understand my business model, how I could monetize the things that I do, and those were the 2 best tools that I used to help me get there.
Warren, shifting a little bit, what role can organizations like NEON play in helping entrepreneurs and residents understand and benefit from the emerging technologies? I imagine the answer might be including a space like this, but.
Well, it starts with space like this. So, I mean, I'm just going to have experts talk about it as we're doing now. The other thing is that when I was a stockbroker and they would give advice, sometimes they would say they're pounding the table to get this out. In the same way, we're going to pound the table so that people understand the importance of AI. So we're going to keep having discussions about this topic in our community conversations because it is absolutely critical. also our business advisors will also become skilled in this, at least aware of it and how to apply it with our clients. So those are the two things that I think are important. And again, keep elevating the conversation.
Doctor, the next question, you kind of gave us a good understanding of Claude, of Gemini, of Copilot, of ChatGPT. It seemed that you use them kind of based on what you're seeking to kind of get out of each of them. So I want to talk a little bit about what skills people need, workers need, entrepreneurs need as they begin to prepare for this AI type of economy. So taking kind of that big level, okay,
Yeah.
there's all this stuff out there. How do we drill down a bit so people understand it's not just the thing, it's the way I use the thing and my proficiency with the thing, if that makes any sense?
I do. Thank you for that question. I think the biggest thing, and I'll go back to it, is curiosity. You have to explore it with a sense of curiosity. Maybe you won't be an expert in prompt engineering like some people are, and some people actually sell their prompts. They're monetizing, selling prompts. But be able to engage with it. And from that, as well as with students, the way that I teach students is to partner AI with other human skills such as communication, problem solving, creativity, because that's something you don't want to outsource to a tool. We still need to be human in this space, and we still need to participate and shape our own futures with AI as a partner or a tool. And one of the ways that I help students with that in terms of skills is actually to speak into whatever tool they're using. It picks up on your nuances, it remembers the conversations, but you don't have to be perfect when you are asking it something. So I might have a 2-minute conversation with it about something that I'm wrestling with, a business problem that I'm wrestling with, or a client business problem that I'm wrestling with. And when I get the responses, then I take the human skills of critical thinking and figuring out the next best path. But for workers, that's how I got into AI. I followed my curiosity. I wanted to know why an AI system was working for some people and not others, and that led me on this trajectory that I've had in the responsible AI space.
Eric?
Yeah, the only thing I'd add to that is, in addition to curiosity, don't be afraid to fail. Failure is the greatest teacher, and recover quick, right? Fail, recover quick, and that will lead you to success. So that's in organizations I've seen, the fear of failure just rules. You can't make a mistake, throw that away. Make mistakes until you find the perfection you're desiring.
So I heard, do not be afraid of AI, lean into AI, empower yourself with skills related to AI, which is the general theme of this. Okay, so I want to do a little temperature check here before we get into another question. How many of you are less afraid of AI than you were maybe 15, 20 minutes ago? You got to get your hands up. Come on. Okay, for those whose hands are down, we're going to ask you one more question here. So let's zoom out. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, I want you to take it open-ended where you want to go with this. What AI skill sets should every person have if they want to take advantage of this AI revolution? And let me give a little bit of context. 30 years ago, we had no idea every human would be walking around with a cell phone the way we do today. Who's proficient in using a cell phone? Everybody. 50 years ago, this would have been sorcery, right? And so it's important for us not just to think about where we are now with AI, but where we're going to be. And so first, kind of shed light on that vision. What does that look like 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now? And what is that skill or knowledge that every single person has to have if they want to be a part of this AI revolution? So it's a deep and open-ended question. We're going to start with the doctor.
Great. I would say, and Eric and I talked about this just before the panel, judgment. Because as you become better at using AI, as you become more skilled at understanding which tools will work for you, for your business, as you understand for your organizations, how your lived experience can benefit and improve your AI use and shaping your own future, we still need human judgment. We still need to ask the questions, do we really need AI in this part of the organization? Do I really need AI in this part of my life? So we still need to be able to have human judgment around what does AI even look like for us in 5 years. For students, and that's part of what I'm doing at the Minnesota Responsible AI Institute, I just kicked off a fellowship for emerging leaders, and that is part of the questions that they'll begin to answer is what is my future going to look like in this AI space? If I'm not an AI expert, how do I think about it from a workforce perspective? How do I think about it from a sustainability perspective and an economic futures perspective and my own identity? How do I make sure that I stay human in the moment, whether it's today or 5 years? So for me, I'm gonna lead with judgment.
Judgment. Eric?
Yes. And judgment about what? Here's so like the phone, right? Cell phones. I can remember when the mobile phones were first out, and the price as well as the convenience of the mobile phone put it out of reach for many of us. The AI vendors are trying to make sure that you don't have that with their tools, right? So they are investing heavily to make sure that it's cheap enough for you to get hooked on now. So to me, what that means, I have to have judgment about what I allow to get hooked into this thing, because eventually the cost, somebody's gonna have to pay that cost. They're gonna want it to be me. So I wanna make sure that whatever I have hooked into this is sacrificable, right? I can do without it, because otherwise I'll have to fork over much more money then. So, and what does that mean? That's not just, don't let it do the thing I have to do every day, but you have to consider your privacy, your information, so in high schools, right, where I'm teaching AI skills, but one of the things I hear the teachers often say is, yeah, Billy, once you put that on the internet, it's there for life. And we've got to carry that same mantra in our use of AI. Once you hand it over to AI, it's going to be hard to wrestle it back. So your judgment has to be in making sure that the thing you embed with AI is, at least for now, something you can give up.
So Warren, in 50 years, when you are still the CEO of Neon, what's that vision look like about the intersection of AI and the work that Neon does?
Yeah, vision. I think a couple of things. Number one, you have to have dexterity so that you type the right things in. The other thing is language. I think language is going to change. As we see with even today, there's a shorthand or way of speaking using, when you're sending texts and so forth. And I think that's going to change. I think what's going to happen now is you're going to have to be careful about the kind of language you use. There's going to be new language that's going to be introduced, and I think we're going to have to be aware of that and very conscious of it. And then also, as I think Eric referenced, if you push a button and it's out there forever. So I think you're going to have to be really good with dexterity so you're not pushing wrong buttons. So.
You talked about language. I read an article, I believe it was in the New York Times, that talked about eventually AI actually being able to simultaneously translate among different languages across the world. And so just think about what that does for facilitating commerce, economic opportunity, labor, the idea of having a singular, I don't want to call it a singular language, but an entry point to every language across the world. Think about what that does to connectivity all across the world. Just one simple example. So we've got about 10-ish minutes for Q&A to open it up. Not everybody at once. And our good friend over here, Mr. Patrick Wilson, is at the microphone for any questions that folks may have.
Hi, I didn't know if I needed to stand or not, but I didn't know about this event 2 days ago, and I feel like the universe brought me into the perfect space to ask this question. I too was displaced from a 25-year career in banking and started to ask the question around AI, and it was as simple as putting my resume into Gemini and saying, look at what I did for 25 years, how could I reimagine this in the space of AI? It led me to take a couple of courses at Cornell Tech for AI strategy, AI law and policy, and I'm in the middle of doing those right now. And the magic of AI is that it gave me, in working through my course projects, it formulated an idea for me to start my own business, which I registered just a month ago. So I'm in plan design phase. and so I'm hearing the conversation today, and my question is around equitable access to AI education. I know Anthropic did a study, and so I'm really curious on your thoughts around how we address that gap so that everyone has access to education or resources to education. Like I was able to go through Dakota County and and they were very helpful in paying for me to go back to Cornell Tech for AI. And then again, bridging the gap between now that I'm educated on AI, I've got a plan, I've got an idea, how do I execute and what are the resources for me to get that business off the ground?
Why don't we start on the access point? I think, Doctor, you're already kind of thinking through these issues with the next generation of leaders. Shed some light on that for us.
Sure. So one of the things I want to make sure we understand is you don't need to pay $5,000 to go get a certificate somewhere. There are plenty of YouTube videos or free sources. I have a free LinkedIn course on free course on LinkedIn. Over 60,000 people have taken that course. It's called Leading Responsible AI in Organizations. So there's tons of resources to improve your AI literacy. So we don't have to spend a ton of money to get some of the basics. So I would start there. And then the second question?
Second question was around, oh, my notes have it around the execution.
Yeah. Well, that would be a conversation for Neon, but I'll tell you what I did. I leveraged AI too to find the resources for me, and many of them they were all over the world. And so, because that's how I think about how humanity is going to thrive, and so I wanted to be able to write books, create videos, do whatever I could. So I don't know what your business model is, but what I would say that AI has helped me do is understand that there is a lane and a pathway for me that is outside of the traditional business model, the traditional entrepreneurship model. And the reason why I want to impress that upon you is because 10 years ago, people kept telling me, nobody cares about this AI stuff. We don't think about AI here in Minnesota. And I said, okay, but I'm going to continue down this path because there's something here calling me, and now I know what it is. It's the humanizing this architecture of change. And so I just wanted to say that use AI to help you in that and try. Like Eric said, nothing beats a failure but a try, and see what happens.
I'm going to take that question to Warren as well, because obviously Warren and Neon are so focused on the execution, people coming in every single day. AI is not to replace any of that work. It is simply an additional lever and part of it. So can you just shed light on maybe the experiences you have in helping businesses stand up or execute on their business plans or anything moving forward?
Well, I would say I would suggest you work with one of our advisors, because they will then help you walk through the process of business. Business tools will stand no matter regardless of the industry that you're in. The execution of, like AI is obviously new, but our advisors will help you navigate that path to a successful business. I mean, you're still going to have cost of goods sold. You're still going to have, it's not a service. It's not a good, but it's a service. There's still going to be cost there. There's things also acquiring clients and all those kinds of things. And we're in a service industry. This is a service environment. And so we work with that. We have service clients all the time. So be glad to do that. Connect with any of my advisors. In fact, meet Robin McLaurin.
You want to raise your hand?
Robin's our business development coordinator, and she will connect you with a business advisor.
I saw some other hands up. I know there was one up here.
Another question over here.
This was so amazing. Thank you for the information. Really appreciate it. You, Dr. Adams, highlighted briefly about a cautionary tale with AI, and then you mentioned about Claude and then the philosophers behind it. I was hoping maybe we could expand a little bit on that, how organizations are considering using AI for like in HR or even with resumes and things of that nature, knowing that we have systemic racism that's occurring and that's deeply affecting our communities of color. Would you mind highlighting? I know it's a little out of scope, but wondering if we could get a little brief summation on that.
Sure. So part of my doctoral work, as I mentioned, was working with employees and organizations on those organizations that were advancing responsible AI well and what that looked like, and those that where responsible AI stalled. And I also do this in practice. So for those organizations that advance it well, which means there's minimal AI harm, which is a negative human experience as a result of biased outputs, they start with a vision across the organization on why they even want to use AI. There's also an executive sponsor who owns the risk of whatever tools are there. So the employees know that it points back to someone. That they have a vision that cascades out to the rest of the organization, and they also have several pathways for employees to contribute. When an employee gets to contribute to shaping the future of their organization's AI strategy, there's more trust in the organization. Some of those pathways look like a business resource group or an ERG, an employee resource group, participating in creating the policy or procedures. It might look like a hackathon. It might look like exchanging roles. And it might look like helping to establish the governance, AI governance. AI governance is where all of that feeds into the design, the development of AI tools, as well as whatever guidelines and frameworks the organization puts together to procure an AI tool, to understand the data. Where is that data coming from? Can they trace it to its origin? And by having these things in place, then you limit the bias that could happen in the output of an organization. HR is better for it because they can use the tools for applicant tracking systems. They can also use it for customer care and helping write bot scripts by engaging employees. So AI really is a mirror of who we are as a society, and now it's being exasperated in the tool, and ways to help with that, as my research has shown and the work that I do, is by having a really good governance practice and a vision, and making sure that that's cascaded out and that job descriptions are modernized to support the organization. Hopefully that helps.
Eric, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, so I feel that, and this is organizations, for-profit organizations in particular, right? Ethics are often secondary to profit, unfortunately. And how can we, as a society of consumers, as well as a society of for-profit entity owners, how can we change that behavior? That is something that would really, at least in my opinion, impact AI's imprint on society if AI profit was not at the top of the priority, and some ethical consideration, some consideration of the societal impact. And compare this to social media, right? The social media has, in our laws, it is protected from the harm it does. So social media, the profits behind social media lobbied the lawmakers to make sure that, unlike newspapers, they couldn't get sued for what they print. If AI gets that same pass, we're doomed, because now AI can harm you, and you can't go and sue the AI. You've got to go and perhaps sue the prompt creator that created the prompt that made AI harm you, and imagine the difficulty in finding that.
I saw one hand up back there.
Hi, thank you so much for sharing your expertise. I'd like to know if there are new businesses, well, I know there are a lot of them, but what kind of new businesses are you starting to see as a result of AI that maybe didn't exist before?
Besides the one we just heard about up front, right? Why don't we start, Eric? Any kind of percolating businesses?
Well, there's a slew of new businesses that are essentially drivers of revenue for the AI titans, right? So I'll create a business that does counseling, or I'll create a business that does compliance checking, and I'm using either OpenAI, ChatGPT, or Google Gemini as the back engine to make all the decisions. So yeah, the industries, it's not really new industries, right? It's the same old industries that we already have, but it's just a new way of accomplishing those objectives, a new way of generating revenue. And yeah, that's the opportunity that I refer to as the gold rush, right? We need to get on board there.
Doctor, before you respond, I'm hearing in the question maybe a through point, not just of what's happening kind of at the Google level, but I'm hearing you say what's happening kind of at the small business level. I'm seeing a nodding head, so maybe we can talk a little bit about that, but also talk about what's the impact we're seeing on the ground with everyday people, and maybe new ideas, new businesses, maybe 1 person, 10 person, whatever it is. But I think that leveling to not just the grass tops, but the grassroots, what's happening there as well. So, Doctor, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'll say that what I've seen over the last 4 years is that AI has helped businesses get started, not necessarily AI businesses. There are a ton of people that are doing AI consulting. But I explained to these folks when we had dinner a couple weeks ago that a few years ago I participated in a Facebook group called AI Prompt Sharing. It started with 30,000 folks, predominantly Black people. And before you could post in that group, you had to share your prompt. People in that group, and it grew to about 120-something thousand, they were leveraging AI so well and reimagining themselves with AI. They were starting businesses as a result of AI, such as a t-shirt printing business. They were starting catering businesses because they could use AI-generated images to help them imagine different things. I talked about someone that was creating images with Mickey Mouse with dreads. And so people were starting accounting businesses because they were getting this free kind of shared expertise and the experience in this safe space. And so I love that example because folks came into this group as strangers, but because of the moderator's request that you had to share your prompt, people were then able to start new businesses as a result of AI. They're not calling them AI businesses, but for instance, a person became very, very skilled at Canva and started creating programs for funerals or birthdays or creating other types of things. And so there are many ways that AI can help launch businesses. I haven't seen as many people start AI businesses unless they're AI consulting. And I've had my business in the AI consulting space way before generative AI.
Warren, thoughts?
I'm just going to echo what Dr. Adams said. It's just new applications is what you're seeing of things that are already existing. And I think that will continue. So I have nothing to add to that.
We've got time, I think, for 2 more questions. And I saw a gentleman over here, his arm was up. So after. Okay. Got to be quick.
My question is basically falling right behind what the doctor just said. I have a hair salon business, but I also have a hair care product line that I launched 4 years ago. And my purpose for coming here today was to find out if I would need to hire someone that has an AI experience, or is it something that I can learn on my own? Because I wanted to do things more in marketing and advertising for my hair care product line. And I wanted to find out if AI would be a direction in which I could go where it doesn't leave so many jobs left for me to do as a hairstylist.
Thoughts? I'll open it up. Doctor?
Yeah, sure. I would suggest that you continue with whatever you're doing that is your sweet spot. and find someone else to do the thing that is maybe not. That's what I had to learn in my business. And I'll give you an example. I am good at creating documents, creating all types of things that are very useful for businesses. Start here, a workbook for leaders or students or women. I'm very good at that. I'm not as great as monetizing and marketing all of that. And what happened once was a friend said, you should stop all that and focus on marketing. And I did, because I believed that that was the operating model. And it didn't serve me well at all. It was way outside of my lane, way outside of my purpose. So I returned back to the creating and actually found someone to actually help me with the thing that I'm not that great at. But that's me, and that's my business advice. It's not necessarily about how AI can be used or not. Yes, AI can create some of your marketing materials. AI can give you a marketing strategy. But is that the best use of your time as the business owner? That's something that you have to kind of determine for yourself.
I will tell you, in my case, a lot of my graphics that go out for marketing purposes are almost all created by AI. There's organic photos that have been taken or other content, but you put that along with the content and say, come up with it. And it saved me a lot of going to other folks to try to draft that out. So that's one hyper example of how AI facilitates, me getting stuff, especially quick. It's not just the cost of the time. It's like it can create a graphic for me in 2 minutes. So that's one little mini example for me. I think I saw the gentleman's hand open. Yep, okay. And we'll come over to you, sir, for the last one. Yeah.
This is a question for you for the attorney.
Oh, I don't answer questions. I just ask them, so.
Oh, well, okay.
I'm kidding.
So the question is, like, in the practice of law, given AI's capabilities to review and analyze specifically Word documents in such blindingly fast, how often are you using it in your practice? And then kind of my real question behind the question is, are judges using AI to synthesize or to distill down legal briefs? And kind of given the baked-in systemic racism that we have in our legal system, is that going to skew legal decisions against brown and black populations in a way that it might not otherwise do if they're not using it?
Yeah. So I would distinguish between, the law is really two ways. You got transactional, meaning people reading documents, and people are signing documents, people are buying businesses, all that type of stuff. And then you have litigation, people going to court arguing. On the first, AI is transforming the world in ways I don't think people fully understand yet. I think it's going to, on one level, create a new generation of lawyers who think differently. They think about how to use AI as much as they do analyzing the law itself. And so AI becomes, kind of like you got a pair of glasses on, right? The pair of glasses is the AI. It is by the way in which they view the law is through utilization of AI. And so that's a whole new generation of lawyers coming up. If you ask their boss's boss, they can't tell you where their inbox is, right? But these new lawyers really can. And so that's the first point. The second one is really around how is AI disproportionately impacting, black and brown folks. Here's what I would say. As someone who's in court enough to know, judges, in my opinion, do two things. One, they love the crucible of them deciding. So they get into the weeds on stuff. And so I think there's a natural protection to want to keep that. And then the second piece is, and you may have seen this in other courts, like in Georgia, courts are actually calling out parties who have AI fake cases in their briefs. So there's a case that went to the Georgia Supreme Court. You can Google it right now. This is crazy. They submitted a brief. The brief had cases from AI. The cases were not real. And the other side did not catch it, because the other side just assumed the propositions being stated were real. Again, I think that speaks to, we're at dinner, you got a knife, a fork, and a spoon. AI is a tool, but it's not a substitute for the actual work that needs to be done. And so I think there's going to be a pushback to use AI in proper ways to pull initial cases, but ultimately the lawyer's still got a lawyer. Otherwise, you're going to end up called out before the Georgia Supreme Court.
There was also a ruling recently, and I can't remember what state, but essentially the ruling said the use of AI in litigation does not protect attorney-client privilege.
That's right.
So that now is a big no-no for lawyers to use it.
Yeah. And we're going to end with our gentleman here on the last question.
Thank you, panel, for your time today. I'm Dwayne Ramseur. My question is this. I read an article recently on Bloomberg about robotics exploding as opportunities for small business and business in general. My question is, how will does AI interface with that, and how will that play a role in the development of robotics that's here today, it seems to be?
Eric, you're
Thank you.
nodding hard, so maybe we start with you on that one.
Yeah.
Yes, that is AI in robotics, not necessarily generative AI, but yeah, the robotics industry is hot. Everything from lawn care and snow removal to, if you go to Japan, there are humanistic robots that take care of the elderly because they can't find enough young people to do that. So it is too just a gold mine waiting to be exploited, right? And yeah.
Doctor?
I don't really have anything to add other than I wish I had a robot. I wish I had a robot that could cook my food and do my laundry and meet my friend down the street and say she's on her way, she's putting on her shoes, and all the things. I mean, seriously, I love technology. I love to be on the frontier of it. And to Eric's point, I was in Saudi Arabia a few years ago speaking, and there was a robot serving us cocktails. Well, mocktails, let me just be clear, because it was Saudi Arabia. Serving mocktails, and I think the last Winter Olympics in China, I think it was, I'm not sure which one it was, but it was serving all of the athletes' food, robots were. And I've seen neighbors that have robot lawnmowers, and I think that there's great use for it. And Amazon actually came out with one that I wanted to purchase. I was on the waiting list. I have a family member that's at the Minnesota Veterans Home, and I wanted to purchase it for that experience because I have spoken out there, and I think it's great for veterans to continue to engage with tools because maybe your families can't be there. And maybe, it helps with cognitive skills or whatever, but I would love to see that being developed more responsibly and for us to leverage it with responsible use cases. There are some where Boston Scientific has robot dogs, and what they do is they had them dancing, so you get used to these dogs dancing, and then the next thing you know, they're at some show where they have guns on their back or rifles on their back where they're being used by the military. So we have to just, again, be thinking more humanistically about why do we even need certain AI tools, whether it's robotics or whatever, and that brings me back to the conversation about judgment.
Before we close, I'll just say that you can Google it right now. Tesla has a thing called Optimus, which is integrating AI technology along with robotics. Eventually, they're thinking about it as kind of a house assistant, if you will, but it's that intersection of I don't want to call it the software, that's not the right term, but the software of AI with kind of robotics hardware to really try to create a integrated experience with robotics. So thank you for that question. So can we just give it up for our panelists?
I have a book for sale. We didn't get a chance to talk about that. I'll be back there at the table. It's a lyrical memoir. It's about my leadership journey. It's about purpose. It's about responsibility. I have parables in there. It's a book that you sit with, and it's a book that I hope leaders think about pausing and not engaging with AI out of urgency and fear, but really out of keeping us human so that we can continue to thrive in the age of AI.
I think that is the perfect way, because it's right in our theme. Our theme is to not be concerned. And on that point, who is still concerned, as concerned as you were when you came in about AI? I choose not to see that hand. Who feels more empowered based on the conversation today? That is what we like to hear. That is what we like to hear. Give yourselves a round of applause. So at NEON, we believe economic justice and empowerment go hand in hand. When we invest in Black ingenuity, entrepreneurship, when we educate with intention, and when we build systems that reflect our communities, not just serve them, we create lasting change. And so as we leave tonight, let's carry forward the insights that we've gained, the questions that we've asked, and the commitments that we've shared. Let's continue to build a North Minneapolis where health is not a privilege, where technology is not just a privilege, but is a promise. Thank you for being a part of this journey. And lastly, I will say our friend, Mr. Patrick Wilson, this is his sunset as he transitions to do some other things, and we just want to give him a round of applause. So Warren, how can these activated, engaged folks continue to get involved and be a part of the conversation?
Just go to neon-mm.org and type in that. And I know we have, you can go to our website, and there you can connect with us, and I encourage you to do that. Also, you can call us at 612-302-1505. Connect with us anytime.
Thanks, Warren. And thank you to Neon for hosting this. Thank you to all of you for joining this community conversation. Stay, linger, talk to people, meet somebody new, and again, thank you for being here.